Hello, my name is Jeff Bronow. I'm the Chief of the Research Division in the Howard County Department of Planning and Zoning. I've been asked to give a presentation from Leadership Howard on the socioeconomics and demographics of Howard County, basically to provide an overview of the county and talk a little bit about its past, present, and future. And then also at the very end, talk a little bit about the current planning initiatives that DPZ and other county agencies are undertaking that can make use of this data. So I hope this is informative. I'm going to try to be as concise as I can and hopefully complete this in about 30 minutes or so, maybe a little bit longer, maybe a little bit shorter. And I understand there's a question and answer session on January 12th. So I look forward to meeting all of you on January 12th virtually to be available for any questions that may arise from this presentation. So with that, I'm going to begin. I'm going to share my screen here. And then from that, bring up a PowerPoint that will show some of this information that I've prepared. So let me do that. So hopefully you can see that. These are the topics I'm going to be discussing today. You can see it's a broad array of information. Leadership Howard has sort of asked me to specifically cover these topics that may be of interest. It's a very brief amount of information on each, but hopefully it is informative for you all. So first, let's talk a little bit about population growth. This chart shows the history of Howard County in terms of population growth from 1940 to 2020 to the current, and then projected forward to 2040. So you can see that the county has experienced a fair amount of population growth post-World War II, which is similar to many other jurisdictions sort of outside of central cities, like Baltimore City, with the the advent of the interstate highway system and the automobiles, suburban growth basically. So the county in the 60s was 36,000, and by the year 2010, it was 287,000. The red in this chart is our projected growth. The census was just completed in 2020, and we estimate there'll probably be around 330,000 residents in Howard County. And then based on the current general plan, Plan Howard 2030, we're expecting the population growth to be about 367,000 by 2040. Now, I'll talk a little bit at the end. We are undergoing a new general plan. We do a general plan every 10 years, so this is subject to change. But based on the current zoning in the county and the current capacity, we expect population growth to be about 367,000 in 20 years. What this chart shows is the population growth by decade. So you can see the county experienced the most rapid growth in the 80s, where the population grew by about 69,000 people. That's a 58% growth rate. The highest growth rate occurred the previous decade in the 70s, where there was about a 92% growth rate. In the 70s and 80s, that's when Columbia was going strong. And so we had a lot of new housing being built in that time frame. Not only Columbia, but throughout the county, really, Ellicott City, the Southeast, Elk Ridge. We just had a lot of growth during that time period. And then growth slowed a bit in the 90s and then slowed a bit even more in 2000. The main reason for that slowing was primarily due to an adequate public facilities ordinance law that was created in the early 90s, which managed or sort of paced growth. So you can see that in the 2000s, growth increased by about 39,000 people at 16%. And then also it grew by about the same rate, 15%, the last 10 years, the last decade. The all population, however, we expect to be a little bit higher than the previous decade, which is a bit of a turnaround from the past trends, as you can see. One reason for that, if you look at some preliminary census data, the household size in the existing housing base in the county seems to be increasing slightly, which is sort of a turnaround that had occurred from the previous 40, 50 years. It's still not fully determine how true that is. We're looking forward to seeing some of the census data come out from the 2000 census to take a look at household size. But I do think it probably has to do with a slight increase of the household size. And if the household size overall increases by a little bit, then you're going to get an increase of population, even though new housing construction might have slowed. And then we're projecting, based on current zoning, that in the following decade, 2020 to 2030, growth will slow even more, with a population increase of about 21,500, or only 7%. And that's primarily due to the limited land availability that's left in the county. So the next general plan, which I'll talk about again at the end, is focusing on this sort of new paradigm in Howard County, where the amount of land left, greenfield development that has occurred over time, is less. And so it's really looking at the future of Howard County being more of a redevelopment opportunity as the demand for growth continues. But overall, we do expect a decrease in population growth into the future, primarily due to the limited land supply. So the county has grown over time, as you can see. So as it's grown, what is the characteristics of the county over time? So what this chart shows is, it shows from 2000 to 2010, and then I have the next chart shows what's happened after 2010. But if you look at the decades of the 2000s, and this is from census data, the population grew from 247 to 287. It's about a 40,000 population increase. As the population has grown by 40,000, what is the makeup of that population? 22,000 of that is Asian and Pacific Islanders. 13,000 of it, close to 14,000, is African American, and 9,000 of it is Hispanic. During that time period, the white non-Hispanic population decreased as the other populations have increased. So clearly from this, it's apparent that the county has become increasingly diverse over the 2000 decade. And then, so what's happened since 2000? That same exact trend has been continuing. So what this chart shows is the increase in population by race from 2000 to 2019, based on the latest census data. We don't have 2020 census data out yet, but you can see that the same pattern is occurring, that the Asian population has increased the most in the last 9 years, followed by African American, followed by Hispanic. And then the non-Hispanic white population continues to decrease. So as a result, the county is continuing to become more diverse. And what this shows is the population by race since the year 2000 to 2019. So it's a 19-year history. And it's the percentage makeup of each of the population. So you can see that the non-Hispanic white population was 73% in 2000. And that over time, over the last 19 years, it's gone down to 50.3% in 2019. So currently, it's about half the population is non-Hispanic white. And you can see the other races increase over that time period as well. This is a chart that shows Howard County's population by 5-year age cohort, which is minority, as of July 1st, 2019, again from census data. So what this basically shows, the red line is the overall population is 49% minority, which basically is everything but not Hispanic white is considered minority. But you can see the younger age cohorts has already sort of exceeded that. So it's already considered a majority minority population for those age cohorts. And the older populations, it decreases over time. So you can expect that over time, the older age cohorts are going to also increase as the county continues to become more diverse over time, and the population change and the immigration and all that stuff continues, which I'll show you in a second. Howard County is not unique in its diversity. As you can see, this chart shows the sort of the percent minority of all counties in the state. And if you look at the two two highest is PG County at 87% minority and Baltimore City at 72% minority. Montgomery County is 57% minority. Howard County is, as I said, about 50% minority. Baltimore County is 44% minority. So the sort of the gray colors there and the bluish purple are counties that have a relatively high minority status. So Howard County is not alone in Central Maryland. Maryland as a whole is a very diverse state, and in particular, Central Maryland is the most diverse of the state as a whole. If you go out towards the Eastern Shore or Western Howard County, the percent minority is less, as you can see from this map in many places. So where are people coming from? This is an interesting statistic. So as we know, growth can occur in three ways: through natural increase, births minus deaths; through domestic migration, people come into Howard County from other places in the United States; and also international migration. People coming directly to Howard County from overseas. And the greatest factor of growth in Howard County in terms of population growth is from natural increase, births minus deaths, followed by international migration, followed by domestic migration. So we do have a fair amount of international migrants, people coming directly from overseas to Howard County, as you can see in this chart. And this chart also reflects that. So it reflects the increasing diversity, which is in large part caused or basically stems from the foreign-born population, because we do have a lot of international immigrants coming to the county. So back in the 60s, for example, Howard County percent foreign-born was 2.1%. And you can see how it's grown over time, particularly since 1990. It's really taken off. So in 1990, the foreign-born, this is the percent of people living in Howard County who in 1990 were actually not born overseas, but now live in Howard County. In 1990, it was 6.1%, and it's increased to about 21% based on the latest census data. This chart also compares it to Maryland. So Maryland is also, as a whole, becoming increasingly diverse. It is with a percentage increase of foreign-born, as you can see, increasing over time. But Howard County, compared to that, is significantly more, about 5 percentage points more. And this shows the percent foreign-born by Maryland and its jurisdictions based on the 5-year ACS, because 5-year ACS captures more data, so I was able to get the whole state using that data set. And as you can see, Howard County is 21% foreign-born compared to Maryland's 15% that was shown in the previous slide. Prince George's County has an even higher percentage, and Montgomery County has an even higher percentage than that, of about a third of its population being foreign-born. And then you can kind of see all the other counties in the state ranked by percentage foreign-born. Again, this reflects this Central Maryland diversity. Where are the foreign-born coming from? So also, as reflected in the race data, most of the foreign-born that have come to Howard County, currently as of 2019, what this is showing is that 68,000 people, 68,000 residents in Howard County are foreign-born, and 42,000 of those 68,000, or about 62%, are Asian, followed by 17% from Latin America, and 11.5% from Africa. And then you can see from Europe, 8%, and North America, which is basically, I think, Canada, probably, maybe Mexico, perhaps. Actually, no, Mexico is probably Latin America. And Oceania, which is 54 people, and that's basically the South Pacific and Australia and New Zealand. So anyways, not very many people currently from there at the present time in Howard County. But again, this shows the region of birth of foreign-born, and it shows sort of the makeup of Howard County as we currently experience it now and are pretty much aware of. So the population is also aging, as we know. So these are national statistics. So the older population is projected to nearly double, growing from 43 million in 2012 to 84 million by 2050. So by 2030, 10 years from now, 1 in 5 Americans will be 65 and older. So we know this sort of aging of the population, the baby boomers, and this is taking place right now. And it's really started over the next 2 decades. And this slide is a really good slide. It shows this. So basically, you sort of see that steep increase from 2010 to 2030, which is about the time of the baby boomers becoming 65. So baby boomers were born between 1946 and 1964. So around this time frame that we see here, the baby boom cohort is moving forward, and they're reaching the age of 65. So we're about halfway through this sort of steep increase, so Howard County is no different. So this is a U.S.-wide chart, but the population in Howard County is also aging, which this chart shows. So the height of these bars represent the total population of the county. So by 2020, we have around 330,000 people in the county. You can see it's grown over time. In 2010, there was about 287,000 people. In 1970, 50, 60,000 people. So the population is expected to grow, but you can see the colors on that chart. The 65 plus is the orange. So back in 1970, the orange 65 plus was pretty small. And then it's increased significantly, particularly since the year 2000 and 2010. So it's expected to continue to grow to 2030. And so we need to think about as a community how to plan for this aging of the population. Talk a little bit about income and poverty. So as we all know, Howard County has a lot of wealth. It's a very wealthy county, and this data shows that. This is the latest census data showing the 2019 median household income of $121,000. So this is median household income, so it would include, all two earner households in Howard County. Compare that to Maryland of 86,000, and if you compare that to the United States median of 65,000, you can show the relative wealth of Howard County. This part also shows the percentage for each of the Howard County versus Maryland versus the United States by sort of income bracket. So, for example, 26% of all Howard County households make more than 200,000 compared to 14% of Maryland and only 9% in the U.S. However, there was also poverty, as we know, everywhere, and Howard County is no different. But relative to Maryland and the U.S., the poverty rate is lower. So in Howard County, recent poverty statistics show that about 5% of people in Howard County are considered to be in poverty. And it should be known that, be related that the poverty level is very low. And there's a lot of community organizations and community services that don't really look at the poverty rate. They look at 2 times or 3 times the poverty rate as still being, needing economic assistance. It's very hard to live in a place like Howard County, even at 3 times the poverty rate. So there's agencies out there. For example, I think there's something called the ALICE statistic that is put out. You'll probably be hearing about that later on. So that's just something to keep in mind, that the poverty rate really isn't a true reflection of the need, economic need and financial need in the community. But if you compare Howard County to Maryland, poverty rate from that standpoint, it is lower. It's about half, maybe not quite half. And Maryland as a whole is lower than the U.S. And for people under 18, children, the poverty rate tends to be higher in the U.S. and Maryland. And for Howard County, according to the current year statistics, it's around the same. I have seen it higher in other statistics for Howard County as well. So going on to talk about veterans, I was asked to provide some information on veterans, so I pulled this together. So the Howard County veteran number, again, this is in 1990. So this is the percent of the civilian population 18 years and over who are veterans. And so the that number is about 16,500 people in Howard County. So there's 16,500 civilian veterans in Howard County, which is about 6.7% of the population. Compare that to Maryland. Maryland, there's 350,000 veterans, which is about 7.5% of the population. In the U.S. as a whole, there are 17 million veterans in the U.S., 17.4 million, and that's 6.9% of the population. So Howard County really is aligned with the U.S. and Maryland for the most part as a whole in terms of the veteran population. Also, I've been asked to present some information on disabilities. So these are the number of people with disabilities, civilian non-institutionalized disabled residents of the total civilian non-institutionalized population. So basically what this means is the percentage of people that have disabilities that aren't in like a nursing home or a care facility. And so that number in Howard County is close to 28,000, about 8.3% of the population. That's been increasing as the population has aged over time, as one would expect. Relative to the state, however, that number is relatively lower. The state has about 11.2% of disabled non-institutionalized residents compared to the U.S., which is 12.7%. So that's something to pay attention to. And a lot of our service organizations are looking at this number and recognizing that it may increase over time as the population ages. Educational attainment. One reason why Howard County is such a wealthy county is because the level of education of residents is quite high. It's very high. It's one of the highest in the country in terms of rankings of counties. As you can see here, about 32% or a third of all Howard County residents have bachelor's degrees, and another third, actually a little bit of a higher amount, actually have graduate or professional degrees. In terms of, this is the highest level of attainment. So about a third of the county residents, 25 years and older, their highest level of educational attainment is graduate or professional degrees. About 32% highest level of attainment is bachelor's, and 13% highest level of attainment is high school graduates. And then there's some other numbers in there that's not shown, like community college or completed some college, things like that. But relative to both the U.S. and the state of Maryland, you can see that the educational attainment in Howard County residents is high. So talk a little bit about jobs in the economy. This chart shows the unemployment rate in Howard County, 5.2%. The latest I got was from September. And compare that to Maryland of 7.3%, and compare that to the U.S. of 7.9%. And this ranks unemployment rates for all counties in Maryland. Typically, Howard County is the lowest unemployment rate, and you'll see in a second where it had been. Howard County and Montgomery County both are typically the lowest, but given the pandemic situation and the sharp increase in unemployment rates due to that, Montgomery County dropped to the lower sort of quartile, or lower half of the ranking. It's now 6.6%, and Howard County dropped also from being one of the lowest in the states to 5.2%. Carroll is currently the lowest, Carroll County, followed by St. Mary's County. What this chart shows, and I received this from the Economic Development Authority, who recently presented this information to the Spending Affordability Advisory Committee, which is a committee that the county executive convenes each year to discuss, to learn about the current economic situation in the county, and to come up with recommendations on how to craft the next year's fiscal capital budget. They put together this very nice chart, and it shows the change in 2020 of unemployment in Howard County compared to other Central Maryland counties. So you can see Howard County was the lowest back in the beginning of the year, around 3%, maybe even 2.56%. And you can see Montgomery wasn't far behind in terms of that. And then March, when the pandemic began, you can see a sharp increase for all counties. And then you can see that things are slowly improving, where the sharp increase in job loss that occurred in the spring, which was sparked by the beginning of the pandemic, and then as folks started adapting to the situation, I suppose that could be said, the unemployment came back. It's still not at the level it was, and there's big questions of how long it's going to take from a county standpoint and a regional standpoint and a U.S. standpoint. How long is it going to take for it to come back to reach previous levels? That currently is unknown. And I think the employment rate has actually ticked up a bit and will probably continue to tick back up given the current surge that we all are experiencing now in the winter months of the pandemic. This basically makes sense and reflects the data that we just saw. This is the share of employees filing initial unemployment insurance claims. So you can see that in the spring, there were a lot of initial claims. Prior to that, the initial claims are very small, close to, less than 1%. But then they picked up significantly with the pandemic, and then you can see the sort of the spikes and peaks throughout. And fortunately, these initial unemployment claims are decreasing or have decreased since then. But you can see, though, however, that they've sort of picked up again in the current situation with the surge of the pandemic. So again, these are being closely tracked, and what's going to happen in 2021 is too early to tell. We're all hopeful, of course, that things will improve over time. So what has this, how have the vacancy rates in Howard County been impacted by this? And you can see that the overall vacancy rates is that blue line in the middle. And this begins in the first quarter of 2018. And you can see that, the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter of 2020, near the right side of the chart, the vacancy rates have increased, but not dramatically overall. You can see the impact on retail. Retail actually has increased significantly. If you look at relative to what it had been in 2019, a little over 2%, 2018, a little over 2%, and that it's doubled to now over 4%, which makes sense given the closings that have occurred due to the shutdown and reaction to the pandemic. So retail is struggling. Office has also, the vacancy rates for office, you can see, have also increased. Big questions, obviously, about what's going to happen to office in the future with everybody working from home. Will that continue? And to what extent will it continue? Even after we get through the pandemic, will things return back to normal? Those are big questions that people are speculating about, but I don't think anybody really knows what's going to happen. We will soon see. These are jobs in Howard County in 2019. You can see by industry. So you can see that in Howard County, the professional and technical services jobs are the most, about 45,000. These are jobs, computer scientists, computer networking specialists, other professionals, lawyers, accountants, etc., make up the most of the jobs in Howard County. And that job category is actually expected to increase in the future for Howard County. That's followed by retail trade. It will be interesting to see how this changed in 2019 when those jobs come out. This comes from the Bureau of Economic Analysis. This statistic is different than the state statistics of jobs. These jobs include both part-time jobs and also proprietors, basically people that are self-employed, small business owners, and, for example, accountants that work for themselves, etc. About 30% of all jobs in Howard County are proprietor jobs, self-proprietor jobs. So if you look at the jobs from, as reported by the states, which really tracks employees related to the unemployment insurance program, it's about 30% lower than what you're seeing, the total represented here. That's just something to keep in mind. So another high level of jobs in proportion to the total is healthcare and social assistance in Howard County, followed by household trade, and then local government, 14,700. Most of that are teachers, the Howard County public school system, something like 10 or 12,000 employees in the school system. And then Howard County government would make up the remaining difference for those. These are the top employers in Howard County. Johns Hopkins APL has around 7,000 jobs. Howard County General Hospital, Verizon, you can see the remaining jobs there. What's not listed here, I guess these are private sector jobs. Yes, they're private employers. So it doesn't include the school system, which is the largest employer in the county, or the Howard County government. But this is private sector jobs. You can see these are some companies that are very important to the economics and the economic base and job providing industries for Howard County. Most of the jobs in Howard County, though, are small businesses, and so it's very important to support our medium and small businesses in the county, since those are the greatest number of employers of jobs in Howard County. So that's sort of a very quick overview, and I really hope it was informative, and I hope it wasn't too long. And I'm looking at the time now, so it looks like it is around a half an hour, I think. So I've been asked to sort of give a quick overview, and I know that some of these initiatives will be presented to the Leadership Howard Group later on during your year. But basically, how is all this data and this information used from at least the county government's perspective? And so there's a couple things that are happening. One is what's called HOCO by design. It's the Howard County General Plan. So that's happening right now. So we encourage you to participate in that if you haven't already. Many of you probably already know about this. But basically, every 10 years, Howard County government is required to, per state planning law, to update their general plan. The general plan is a general guideline, really. It's like a land use plan of future growth in the county. It's policy, it's very largely policy based. From the general plan come detailed plans like zoning, subdivision regulations, and other types of plans that really are the nuts and bolts behind where and how much future growth occurs in the county and what type of growth. So the first general plan in Howard County occurred in 1960, which is right after it, soon after it became a charter form of government, as opposed to a commissioner form of government. So it became a charter form of government, which means it basically has a county executive, county council, and then the judicial branch. And the plan is required. 1960 it happened. And then we've adopted plans about every 10 years thereafter. The last general plan, called Plan Howard 2030, was adopted in 2012. It was called Plan Howard 2030 because it looked out 20 years to the year 2030. This current general plan is called HOCO by design. And so it's a 20-year plan that goes from 2020 to 2040. And it's a great opportunity to participate, to basically come up with policies that will shape the future of our county, primarily in terms of land use. So the website for that is hocobydesign.com. So please go to that website. It's a great website. It has all of the information about the plan. It has all of the public participation opportunities and survey opportunities for folks to become engaged. There's also a Facebook page that you can see there below. So please sign up. You can register to receive emails to get information about where we are in the planning process. The goal is to finish the plan by the end of 2021. We started at the beginning of this year, and we've hired consultants, a huge, very excellent consulting team with a lot of expertise. County staff, Department of Planning staff is also very engaged, and we're guiding the consultants and providing information to the consultants. A big part of the consulting process is public engagement. So we're having them help us with public engagement, reach out to as many people as we can to get input, so we can all become part of this plan and all become part of our future. Some other initiatives that are related to the general plan. The first is the Housing Opportunities Master Plan. That is an ongoing planning effort. Also, you can see the website there. Please visit that website to get information about that. This is about the future of housing in Howard County, how much, where, and for example, the primary impetus of this plan is affordable housing. How can we try to provide more affordable housing in Howard County? So that process has been going on for about a year, and it's intended to wrap up at the end of March with the final document then being presented to the community and the county executive and the county council. So it's important to know that the Housing Opportunities Master Plan is actually an element of the general plan. So it will be incorporated into the general plan. So there's a connection there. Another initiative is what's known as Age-Friendly Howard County. This also started about a year ago, and it's a way to address the aging population, which you saw in the charts earlier, and how to accommodate our aging community. And this is going to continue at least for the next 10 years, and then if not longer after that. This is being organized by the Department of Community Resources and Services, specifically the Office on Aging and Independence within that department. You can see the website there to look at. The intent of this age-friendly, also to keep in mind, it's being led by the county government, but we realize that county government can't address this alone. So it's really intended to incorporate government, nonprofits, and outside community organizations to try to address this as a whole. For example, there's this organization which many of you may know of. It's called the Villages, which is a nonprofit, and it's a nonprofit organization to help older communities in Howard County, and it's actually all over the country. There's a Villages group that's been formed in Howard County. It's an excellent group. So it's those types of organizations, along with county government, trying to come together with a plan. And so there'll be a document when this process is over, expected to be completed sometime in 2021, to come up with policies and initiatives and strategies to address the aging population in Howard County. That also will be incorporated into the general plan as well. So there's a lot of opportunities to become engaged, and lot of ways that this data that I just presented to you is being used to kind of look at trends, past, present, and future, to determine, what do we need to do to sort of address what's coming up in Howard County. So from what I understand, there's a question and answer session on January 12th. If that's changed, don't pay attention to this slide, although I don't think, I just checked and it's still scheduled for January 12th. So I look forward to being available for that and being available to any questions you might have regarding this. So thank you very much. And I appreciate the time that you've taken to listen to all of these various numbers. Thank you. Bye-bye.